Order, Madam Speaker.
Besicela sithathe leli thuba sigebise amakhanda sikhuleke buthule. Amako. Honorable members, the Deputy Speaker also on virtual. Let us take a moment to remember in our thoughts and prayers all those souls who have departed untimely due to COVID-19, other natural causes, murders and road accidents. Amongst them, a veteran actor and entertainer, Mr. Patrick Shai, Inkosi yesizwe sabaThembu, Inkosi uNgangomhlaba Mathanzima, Ricardo Muziwendlovu Makado, professionally known as Ricky Rick, nabo bonke abanye abasebenzela urhulumente wethu, abezenkolo, amakhosi, noluntu lonke oluthe lwasandulela kwisikhathi esamanje kuphindela kukuhlala kokugcina kwalendlu. Ngizocela ukuthi sisukume sonke sibe nomzuzu wokubahlonipha. Inkosi ibaphe umphumulela waphakade. Honorable members, we have received and processed the following apologies. The Honorable Ms. B.N. Sithole Moloi, who's MEC for Agriculture and Rural Development, who has an age and family engagement. The Honorable Mrs. A.G. Mapena, who is on study leave. The entire Economic Freedom Fighters Caucus, who are busy with Economic Freedom Fighters organizational matters. There are following members who are not well: Honorable P.A.T.N. Buthelezi and Honorable P.P. Herricks from the EFF. Honorable members, may I take this opportunity to wish all the members who celebrated their birthdays during the month of January and February. I do hope that your birthdays were everything that you wished for. On the 2nd of January, it was the Honorable B.M. Zuma, the Chief Whip of the Legislature. On the 4th of January, it was the Honorable V.F. Hlabisa, the leader of the official opposition. On the 6th of January, it was the Honorable T.P. Mthethwa of the IFP. On the 21st of January, the Honorable Dr. R. Virana of the DA. On the 30th of January, it was the Honorable N.J. Nkwanyana of the IFP. On the 12th of February, it was the Honorable S.J. Nxumalo, the Chairperson of Economic Development Portfolio. Also on the 12th of February, the Honorable N.M. Sibiya, the MEC for Public Works and Human Settlements. On the 20th of February, it was the Honorable M.J. Mazibuko of the IFP. On the 24th of February, yesterday, it was the birthday of the Honorable Mr. S. Moodley of the IFP. Honorable members, we just hope that you had wonderful days. Now we will move to item number 4 on the order paper, announcements or reports by the Premier. Honorable Premier.
Honorable Speaker, we have no announcements for today. Thank you.
Siyabonga nkulu baphathiswa. Siqhubekele ku item number 5 on the order paper, tabling of reports or papers. The first one is from the Department of Transport, Gazette number 2360, Road Management Cooperation Act, Regulations 2022. The Treasury tables Consolidated Municipal Budgets Performance Report, Second Quarter Review 2021-2022. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs tables Umkhanyakude District Municipality, November 2021 monthly report, Annexure A progress report on the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution at the Mpofana local municipality. Another annexure is a progress report on the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution at Umsunduzi local municipality. Progress report on the intervention in terms of Section 1 and 6 of the Constitution, 139 of the Constitution at the Uthugela district municipality. Close out report in relation to the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution at the Inkosi Langalibalele municipality as at 30 November 2021. Progress report on the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution at the Umzinyati district municipality. Progress report on the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution at Abaqolusi local municipality. The Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs also tables KZN Growth Fund's Annual Report 2020-2021. Is there any tabling that has not been recorded that a member wishes to record today? Seeing that there is none, we will move to the next item, which is formal motions and notices by the Chief Whip. Bexesha Omkhulu.
Sabonga kakhulu somlomo. Sabonga nokusinikeza ithuba somlomo. Cha, asinazo izethulo esinazo namhlanje.
Siyabonga Mpexesha. Malunga ahloniphekile, sizawudlulela kwi-main order of the day, which is the debate on the state of the province address as tabled in the House yesterday by the Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. S. Zikalala. We will start the speakers list, and the first speaker for 10 minutes on behalf of the ANC is the Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, VP Kaluza.
Honorable Speaker, Premier Kuzeni, honorable members of the Executive Council, Sotswepho Mkhulu Nxamalala, honorable members of the House, ngokukhethekile sibingelele unobhala kaKhongolose uMphemba. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly receive my heartfelt greetings. Asiqale ngokusho somlomo ukuthi akusethusa ukungabi khona kwe-EFF in the House, because they were only here yesterday to grandstand in front of cameras. But as usual, when it comes to the actual legislature work, bayabaleka njengoba behlale benza. We call for an investigation on all EFF members who slept at the hotel and woke up this morning but are not here to work in umsebenzi wesizwe. Honorable Speaker, allow me first to make a disclaimer. I am Vuyiswa Kaluza, the daughter of the African National Congress, umbutho wabantu. I stand on the shoulders of giants. I stand on the shoulders of the lion of the Midlands, Ubaba uThemba Herigwala, the first chief whip of the official opposition of the House. Ibubeselama kulokhu elalukholelwa yikho until his last days. He was unshaken and resolute ukuthi izindlu zombuso mazibe semgungundlovu. That is why we must applaud you, Kuzen, for putting timelines that will see the parliamentary precinct become a reality. Honorable Speaker, I stand on the shoulders of Mzala Nxumalo, who prepared us for what we are seeing today. The double agenda is still very much alive. They are conniving to overthrow the ANC, but what they do not know is that, like a phoenix, the revolutionary movement will rise, rise, and rise. The IFP may wish to write you off, Mfokamkhatshwa, but we are here to remind them that you spoke truth to power. I stand on the shoulders of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, a brave woman who was courageous in the revolution. When they tell us to sit down, ngoba sibancane, okanye bethi asizuzwa ngabafazi, I look up to you, Mama, for courage, because you did not only defeat the apartheid regime, but you confronted patriarchy head on. That is why I proudly stand here today and tell all those who care to listen that I am the daughter of the African National Congress. Somlomo, kuyacaca ukuthi khona laba abanokuthinteka emqondweni ngokuba sebekhola amangabo bese bengafuni ukuyizwa esondelene neqiniso. It is a fact of history that the South African Native Congress that later became the African National Congress was formed mainly to unite all the oppressed people of South Africa. Equally, it is a fact of history that the ANC formation and policies were therefore largely influenced by the traditional leadership. It is for this reason that the Contralesa was formed. It was formed to unite all traditional leaders in the country and also to, amongst other things, win back the land of our forefathers and share with those who work it. Somlomo Hloniphekile, we decided to give this brief history in order to correct the opportunistic tendencies that is becoming unbecoming, especially from the side of the IFP, to attempt to misuse the current challenges affecting Indlunkulu to score cheap political points, thus labeling the ANC and its government as being against the traditional leadership, particularly the king designate. We are sick and tired of the IFP that continue to mislead the people of KwaZulu-Natal by opportunistically presenting themselves as the defenders of the traditional leadership, whereas history records the opposite. Honorable Speaker, as Amilcar Cabral would say, and I quote, hide nothing from the masses of our people, tell no lies, expose lies whenever they are told, mask no difficulties, mistakes, or failures, and claim no easy victories, unquote. I will not stand here and claim that the ANC government is perfect. I will equally not stand here and say it is not. Standing here, I am confident that the whole House will agree with me that the COVID-19 pandemic caused a lot of suffering in the lives of our people, in the province, in the country, and in the world. Since the 5th of March 2020, when the first case of coronavirus infection was diagnosed, life has never been the same. We have seen different levels of lockdowns with many devastating effects on people of all ages. To date, we record that our province has more than 650,000 people who are infected, of whom more than 15,900 have died. Amongst those who have died are health workers and general civilians. It is proper that I, at this point, salute the Department of Health and all frontline workers who braved and sacrificed themselves to save our lives. The negative impact of COVID-19 was, but adding to an already frustrating situation of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. It must be remembered that jobs were lost during the lockdowns. Gender-based violence was increased. Companies, including the South African-based companies like Marathon manufacturers, made losses to the level of needing bailouts, and some were even closed. Who would have imagined that the Hilton Hotel in eThekwini Metro would one day be closed? Again, we must thank the government of the African National Congress for saving the day. It is the government of the ANC that allowed employment of more health workers and other categories of workers to fight the pandemic, meanwhile creating employment. It is the same government that gave social relief grants, allowing people to put food on the table. Yebo siyavuma ukuthi ayanele, kodwa iqinisele ngephikiso ukuthi lolu sizo olufike nohulumeni kaKhongolose lwenzile umehluko kubantu abaningi. Honorable Speaker, as I quoted earlier, I will tell no lies and claim no easy victories. Kuyiqiniso elingephikiso ukuthi abantu bakithi sabathembisa impilo engcono. We can never stand here and be proud, Honorable Premier, ukuthi abantu bakithi abahlala endaweni especially elindela lo sesiphingo sebehlala eminyaka edlulile kweyishagalolunye. Ziningi imbangela ezidale lokhu okubala kuzo nokungabi khona komhlaba owanele. Kepha uhulumeni kaKhongolose uyazehlisa kubantu bakithi. Ingakho silwamukela uhlelo olwethulo undunankulu oluzoqeda ngazo zonke izakhiwo zesikhashana ezaziwa ngolindela before the year 2025. On that note, Honorable Speaker, allow me to pass a message to the Premier from umakhelwane wami, uMakaMasalado, ohlala eWard 2 eMzumbe. Like most of us, she has lived in a mud house all her life. She said, I must tell you, Ndunankulu, ukuthi today, she is a beneficiary of a beautiful RDP house. And I must tell you, ukuthi, this was done through the recently OSS intervention efikile endaweni. This goes to show ukuthi it might not be today, but eventually the ANC government will reach every household to deliver on its promise for a better life. Somlo, siyazi ukuthi abantu bakithi abanweme ngendlela ugesi ophakelwa ngayo. Akumele ukuthi lolu hlelo lelo shedding kuze kube into ejwayelekile. That is why we further applaud you, Premier, on your announcement on the alternative energy generation. We do believe that this will go a long way in finding a lasting solution because our people are tired of blackouts. Honorable Speaker, we all agree that the water challenges have been one of the biggest problems we have been engulfed with as a province. Upon realization thereof, a provincial master plan was adopted in 2021, which provided a detailed infrastructure assessment priorities and the budget required to ensure that all citizens obtain access to quality water and ensuring that our communities do have access to water. An installation of boreholes have been installed in 32,384 households, particularly in Uthukela, Umkhanyakude, Zululand, Amajuba, Herigwala, and Umzinyathi district as a short-term relief to water scarce throughout the province. Regarding the focus plan to address the water challenges in Ugu and Umkhanyakude, we welcome the proposed focus plan. However, we want to emphasize that these projects should be completed as per the stipulated timeframes that you have put, Honorable Premier. Asikusho-ke ukuthi asaneme ngendlela umkhandlu wenkatha lapha eZululand osebenzisa ngayo indaba yamanzi ukulwa izimpi zayo. Sikubonile bethusa ukuthi they are going to cut water at the King's Designate Palace. We are calling on the ANC to stop politicizing the issue of water, and we believe that they have seen that using this stance was just a cheap populist stunt that will never work. Honorable Speaker, last year, some honorable members took to this podium to air their frustration regarding the state of the capital city at the time. I must state that I am proud of the ANC deployees to Umsunduzi municipality for ensuring that they heed the call made by the Premier, who is also the ANC chairperson in KwaZulu-Natal, to bring back the capital city to its former glory. We might not be where we want to be, but the improvement doesn't go unnoticed. We now call upon the municipality to decisively deal with the issue of water and electricity challenges in some parts of the city. If there is any form of sabotage, let it be investigated, and those found to be behind it be brought to book. Asingavumeli ukuthi kube khona abalimaza ingqalasizinda ngenhloso yokulwisana nokhongolose bese kuthinteka umphakathi wakithi. Bangangavuma ukuncoma, Honorable Speaker, ukuthi idolobha lethu selingcono nokuba beliyona, ngoba ayikho into eyenziwa ukhongolose ekibe yinhle emehlweni abantu abaphila ngokugxeka. Sibonile umsunduzi uzama ngokusemandleni ukuthi idolobha lethu libe clean. Asisho ukuthi konke sekwenzekile, kodwa yesishoyo ukuthi umsebenzi uyabonakala. Siyabonga khongolose wabantu. Amandla.
The next speaker for 15 minutes is the Honorable VF Hlabisa, Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier, honorable members and distinguished guests. Before I get to my debate, I want to respond to Honorable Tsaluza. Mzala Nxumalo's book has been discredited even by senior ANC leaders. Now, I can mention them by name because you can go to the Secretary of the Province of KwaZulu-Natal. He will tell you, senior leaders of the ANC have discredited what Mzala Nxumalo did. That is why, therefore, Honorable Speaker, we do not need Mzala Nxumalo to campaign as the IFP. No, in November last year, we never needed Mzala Nxumalo in order to reclaim the municipalities that we claim. Again, you can say whatever you like about Zululand issue. I also want to join your call, Honorable Tsaluza, that the Premier must refrain from using the issue of water for political reasons. In the statement, if you did not read it, in the statement which the Premier issued last week, he dragged the name of the IFP on a matter where the IFP was not related to. Lastly, I told you in 2019 that in 2021, Sizojahana Nani, when we reclaimed the municipalities, and you laughed at me, and it did happen last year. I want to tell you even now, Sizojahana kusukela manje kuze kushaye 2024, the story you are talking about, the story you're talking about of Lindela in 2025, ngeke sinfice e-ofisini, forget. When we sat on this house in 2021, Honorable Speaker, for the SOPA, we were
Honorable
all-
members, the heckling must not drown the speaker on the podium. It must not drown the speaker.
we were all in a sopid state as His Majesty King Zwelithini kaBhekuzulu was unwell in hospital. Later on, tragedy struck as His Majesty unexpectedly left us in this world. As a nation, we still feel the unceremonious impact of that tragedy, which was immediately followed by the departure of the Queen Regent Mantombi Dlamini Kasopuza Wesibili. But as a province and nation, we have found solace in the manner that His Royal Highness Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the Prime Minister of the Zulu monarch and the Zulu nation, has expertly handled the affairs of our Zulu royalty together with the Zulu royal family. It is in this regard that I kickstart my debate by saluting His Majesty King Misuzulu kaZwelithini, Inkosi abayiphika beyazi, isilo esikhulu uZulu omnyama. One of the devastating effects of the colonial wars amongst the Zulu nation was the downgrading of the status of the Zulu king to a mere paramount chief. Thanks to Mntwana kaPhindangene and the late king, that this status was revived and rekindled again by the erstwhile KwaZulu government to that of the king of the Zulu nation. It is all thanks to our forebearers in this house that all parties in 1994, under the leadership of the IFP, unanimously agreed to having His Majesty the King officially officiate in the official opening of this house at the beginning of every year. This is a legacy that the IFP will fight tooth and nail to protect and preserve. It cannot be that gains of our cultural heritage get reversed by the democratic dispensations of our time. We listen to the decision of the ruling party to invite the king with a proviso that His Majesty will get an exclusive day to address the legislature. The IFP was relieved when we saw the invitation titled His Majesty. And we want to thank the Premier for giving a fitting and proper salute to His Majesty King Misuzulu kaZwelithini. Uma ke nisaphika ukuthi khona isilo buzani lapha kukhuzeni. South Africa has just emerged from the local government elections which took place on the 1st November 2021. The IFP went to these elections with a call to the people of South Africa to trust us. Indeed, the people of KwaZulu-Natal in particular responded resoundingly positive to our call. As a party, as we have charged our local government leaders in the majority of the municipalities we govern in KwaZulu-Natal, we have asked them to serve the people with honesty, humility, and integrity. We charge them to give servanthood, leadership, and optimum service delivery. South Africa is in a crisis. The economy is not growing. Unemployment is on the rise. The poverty gap between the rich and poor is widening at an alarming pace. The infrastructure to assist the country with its provinces to respond to these challenges is dilapidating. Crime is escalating. The crisis in which the country finds itself is a crisis that KwaZulu-Natal also suffers from. When tabling his budget on Wednesday this week, the Minister of Finance actually acknowledged that the economy of the country has been stagnating for more than a decade. In the case of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces, the stagnation was turned into regress by the violent unrest that took place in July 2021, affecting the two provinces. When delivering the State of the Province address in 2021, the Premier said that the programs of the province demonstrated a province that was moving solidly away from being a social welfare state. Whilst this state of affairs is the IFP's wish, it doesn't look like our country and province will be moving anytime sooner from being a social welfare state. This is historical and is embedded deeply into the organizational and operational processes of the country. Honorable Speaker, the current state of affairs has actually entrenched the notion of KZN becoming a social welfare state instead. Of course, you cannot solve the poverty problem through dependency. The IFP has long advocated for programs of self-help and self-reliance to be intensified among our communities. Honorable Premier, while we welcome the 100 million for KZN Youth Empowerment Fund increase, we feel this money is still too little to intervene meaningfully to the plight of our youth who constitute the biggest portion of the unemployed people in this province. As we go forward, more allocation be provided to further increase this fund, and we will further support you in doing this for the best interest of our youth. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2020, national government provided provinces with strong response programs and resources. It is unfortunate that in the wake of the pandemic and the declaration of the state of disaster in our country, some opportunists saw an opportunity to quick get rich schemes for themselves. Procurement procedures and regulations got flouted to line up pockets of certain individuals in the public service and the private sector. The big question now is, how has the government of the province responded to such irregularities as consequence management, and to also show the province that the province will not tolerate wrongdoing? Some punitive measures meted out to some public servants fingered by the SIU PPE investigation are a gross transversy of justice. At DSD, those responsible for the gross irregularities on the blanket scandals are seemingly getting away scot-free. Honorable Speaker, suspensions with full pay are not punishment and a deterrent. Honorable Premier, while we welcome 16 people of private sector corruption and 24 government officials convicted for corruption, this is a drop in the ocean if one looks at the extent of the corruption in KwaZulu-Natal. It will be good if the Honorable Premier can take us into confidence into how many service providers have been blacklisted and how has the assets forfeiture unit has recovered, and how much the assets forfeiture unit have recovered, to send a full message that in KwaZulu-Natal, if you steal, we arrest you, we blacklist you, and we recover whatever you benefited in an undue cause. The recently released SIU report also vindicated the IFP on the issue of flouting irregularities that were raised with the department. The CFO has jumped the ship through resignation. What steps will be taken on them, Honorable Premier? The SIU report on KZN education, recently released by the state president, has also found gross irregularities on PPE procurement. These include inflating prices, under delivery of ordered items when money has been paid already, fraud, fronting, forgery, and uttering. The report has recommended that disciplinary action be instituted to about 20 departmental officials, including the accounting officer. What have you done, Honorable Premier, if you are to tackle and show your commitment that you made yesterday for building a capable, ethical, and caring state? We cannot agree more with you, Honorable Premier, on the need to grow the economy in order to provide jobs for our people, especially the youth. The government must do everything in its power to ensure that the conditions are conducive for investors to have confidence to invest in our province. As the IFP, we are going to join hands with the government to attract investors as we now govern the majority of the municipalities in this province. The other challenges as our province are ESCOM, who supply unreliable energy that is promoting disinvestment, crime that is rising unabated, and the endemic corruption that is poisoning our investment efforts. Even the job creation commitments that you made during your last SOPA Kuzen have not been able to produce all the job figures you committed. A lot of projects that the Honorable Premier announced last year have not taken off, like the textile industry from Newcastle to Ladysmith and Escort. One wonders, Kuzeni, whether the figures committed yesterday will ever become a reality. Only time will tell. In order to boost the economy, in order to boost and revive our economy, the IFP maintains that the provincial government must seriously attend to the issues of service delivery that impact negatively to the province. As Emvelo has allowed infrastructure in their tourism centers to crumble. The contribution of Ezemvelo to the growth of tourism economy is massive when properly managed for more than a decade. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Hlabisa. The next speaker for 16 minutes is Honorable F.A. Rogers, the leader of the DA.
Ndiyabulela Somlomo. Madam Speaker, so often parties in this House are accused of politicizing issues in the province. But it was strange the Premier fired the first salvo yesterday and clearly once again indicated the ANC's policy of do as I say and not as I do. The Premier yesterday intimated that it's the ANC that was responsible for the delivery of houses. This statement epitomizes the opportunism. The ANC does not deliver or prioritize houses. The ANC cannot even pay its staff salaries, let alone supply housing. Yesterday's SOPA, Madam Speaker, was full of content, but desperately short on deliverables. Credit, however, must be given to the Premier for having the ability to identify and acknowledge our challenges. But there's no merit in not having a defined and workable solution to these challenges. Looking back at the Premier's earlier SOPA in 2021, there he highlighted 4 key issues that he felt needed to be addressed. These were reigniting the economy and job creation, building social cohesion, fighting crime and corruption, delivering basic services, in particular water, building a capable and ethical state. So, Premier, what happened from last year to now? To date, there's been no reigniting of our economic recovery or job creation. In fact, KwaZulu-Natal's unemployment rate has increased to the point where almost half of the working population are unemployed. This, while business and investment is pulling out of our province and collapsing every day. Perhaps the Premier needs to take a leaf out of the book of the President and publicly admit that industry and business creates jobs, not government. It's government's responsibility to create a conducive environment with less bureaucratic red tape to allow business to flourish and create jobs. There's been no building of social cohesion, fighting crime and corruption. Instead, KwaZulu-Natal people were left abandoned in July 2021. According to a report into the insurrection, ANC factionalism issues played a key role. The same report indicates that it's not a matter of if this kind of unrest happens, but indeed when. There's been no decrease in KZN's murder rate, now the highest in the country. This while SAPS remains incapacitated by appalling working conditions, insufficient resources, and a lack of proper training. There's no evidence of proper consequence management when it comes to corruption. This applies particularly to the blatant theft of PPE during the pandemic and the so-called blanket saga within the Department of Social Development, the e-procurement forensic tool. The list is endless. Just yesterday, the Premier told us about the consequence management and alluded to a number of officials and industrial players who've been charged. Does this mean that there are no politicians that have ever been involved in fraud or corruption? Today, there's no significant improvement in the delivery of basic services, particularly water. The lack of success in this area is representative of the enormity of the failure under the Premier and his government. This very city we find ourselves in today, I think it's called the City of Choice, is just one example of water failures. eThekwini now seems to have joined the woes of water in our province. Add to that Ugu, Rand, Kunyeni Municipality, Mkanyakuda District, and one is left questioning what delivery of services was the Premier talking about in 2021. The Premier yesterday referred to 80% of the province having access to water. I challenge that statement. Perhaps 80% of our province has the infrastructure, but 80% certainly does not have a constant supply of water. An example of this is the 7-year saga in Ugu. Now the Premier suddenly arises to the reality that there are problems. But his undertaking yesterday was weak and with no solution. He implies that the current infrastructure works are, once the infrastructure works are complete, that the water crisis will end. This is not correct at all. The infrastructure backlog is so bad that it'll just kick the crisis down the pipeline to the next plant. Here's some facts. In June 2022, Eskom should have completed the new high voltage power line to the Umtumvuna waterworks. However, currently the Umtumvuna waterworks don't have the low and high level pumps in place to add the extra 20 ml needed for the water shortages there. Additionally, there's no budget in place to procure these pumps. Secondly, in October 2022, the upgrades at St. Helens Rock extraction point should be complete. However, the Boboy Waterworks needs a massive 100 million rand upgrade to the plant to handle the additional water it will receive. There needs to be a new berm on the Umzimkhulu River, new clarifiers, debris filters at the waterworks. The Kumasi water scheme implemented by the Mgani Water is to build a new dam and water infrastructure on the Kumasi River. This is a long-term project that will only be completed in the next 20 odd years or so. Additionally, current Mgani water infrastructure only extends as far south as Pennington. This dam will not assist the water crisis in Ugu South. Today, there's been no real movement towards building a capable and ethical state. For far too long, this mantra has been tossed around by the ANC with little or no improvement. A capable and ethical state starts with the Premier and his cabinet, leading from the front, leading by example, and not the continual empty threats of accountability and consequence management. Nothing will change. Our province remains trapped in its own incapacity and captured by the political opportunists out to enrich themselves at the expense of service delivery. It's been a very rough year for the residents and the people of KwaZulu-Natal, and we certainly don't need to reiterate that to them. As I stand here today, the safety of our people remains at risk following the 2021 insurrection. President Ramaphosa and Minister Bheki Cele have called it just that. Earlier this week, the DA set out its expectations ahead of yesterday's debate, and we outlined the areas where we wanted to see an intervention. And at the top of our agenda were the safety of the people and business in KwaZulu-Natal. What the Premier should have done was outlined what him and his cabinet are doing to ensure that KwaZulu-Natal's people are never again abandoned in their hour of need, as they were during the week of insurrection and anarchy. According to a report handed to the President and to the carnage, ANC factionalism played its role in what transpired. The same report indicates that it's not a matter of if, but when this happens again. The Premier missed the opportunity as to how many people have been arrested and convicted for the attempted insurrection. South African Police Services. Given that these are the very individuals tasked with protecting us, the Premier should have informed us as to how he's going to capacitate SAPS to do just that. Recent oversights conducted by this legislature and its MPLs showed appalling working conditions, insufficient resources, a lack of properly trained individuals, leaving SAPS ill-equipped to save anyone, let alone themselves. Provisional of housing. The Premier yesterday referred to the glorious revolutionary movement of the people of South Africa. the African National Congress. Today, I've invited some special guests to this house. These guests hosted me in the Mate Transit Camp in Lamontville. I spent 2 days and 2 nights in this transit camp. My gratitude and thanks go to the families that hosted me and the warm reception from that community. This transit camp was built in 2006. The residents were told they would receive formal housing in 6 to 8 months. Well, 12 odd years later, they still live in the most horrendous conditions. If you need to see inequality, then this is the epitome of inequality. Families live in a one-room, tin-roofed shack, which form the living area, the kitchen, and the bedroom. No privacy whatsoever. In my host's home, both parents share one room with 4 children, ranging in age from 8 years to 15 years old. The transit camp has one ablution and shower facility for all residents, men, women, and children. The doors to the toilets and showers are missing or broken. In the area I stayed, only 2 toilets were working and 1 cold shower was working. There were no basins in the ablution block. The area I stayed in stank of sewage, which flowed down the steep street, forming pools of sludge in the area where I stayed. I thought it opportune for me to introduce the residents of Mate Transit Camp to the Premier and his cabinet, as they certainly do not endeavor, I wouldn't imagine, to inspect the living conditions or give answers to the future of the residents. After the Premier told us that there'd be no transit camps remaining after 2023, perhaps in your response, Premier, you can respond to the people of Mate Transit Camp. They're here. When will they be moved? Where will they be moved to? Who's funding this project? Because I don't see it budgeted for. And when will this formal housing list commence? Knowing the Premier and my comrades in this house, I don't expect any positive response other than calling me a political opportunist, a racist neoliberal, and all the other sad innuendos that we've become so accustomed to in this house. When you fail dismally in your projects, that's all you do. You refer to race and you refer to opportunism. Now the people will hear for themselves exactly what the glorious revolutionary movement think of their plight. Moving on, local government. Just last week, the Premier himself admitted that him and the ANC had failed the residents of Umzinduzi. We all knew that. We've been telling you that for a long time. In fact, people like Zwelin Keys have been telling you that for a long time. What we wanted to hear yesterday was why the Premier and his cabinet have allowed the city to collapse under their watch. What we want to hear is accountability and consequence for those cadres deployed who have failed the people. What did the mayor do in his first term? He was asleep at the wheel, yet he's back once again. The reality is change will never happen under the watch of the Premier and the ANC. The last 8 years is proof of that. What is the Premier going to do to ensure that municipalities all comply, that effective service delivery becomes the sole focus of local government? Running a provincial project to assist with replacing streetlights is ludicrous. Placing dysfunctional municipalities under administration is a failure. Umzinduzi speaks for itself on that count. The residents, Mr. Premier, are sick and tired of paying local government for services that are non-existent, but the bloated bureaucracy continues to grow unabated. What we want is action plans with timeframes. What we want is accountability and consequence, as the Premier so often prides himself in, with him and his cabinet implementing. Just last week, the Premier confused the people of this province about the cost of the motor vehicles for the royal wives. Then, to make matters worse, he threw his own official under the bus, claiming that he, the Premier, had been misinformed. The Premier would do well to remember that he took an oath of office and that the buck stops with him. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the Democratic Aligned Blueprint puts the need of KwaZulu-Natal's people first. Hence, I took the time, the energy to actually go and live and see inequality for myself. Inequality not raised or not caused by the DA, but caused by the failure of the African National Congress. It is this blueprint from the DA that will ultimately provide jobs and create effective and affordable services. It also provides feasible solutions to the key challenges within KwaZulu-Natal's provincial government departments. Premier, I thank you.
The next speaker on the podium is a member of the EFF. As we said earlier on, they are doing their party work. They are not in the legislature work. We will go to the next speaker on behalf of the ANC for 11 minutes, the Honorable N.C. Melane, MEC Health.
Somlomo ngiyabingelela kundunankulu ngibingelele kuwo wonke amalunga eshayamthetho njengoba u-Deputy Chief Whip eshilo ukuthi ngubani nami ngizosichaza nguNomagugu kaSimelane oqhamuka ophuzane eDumbe eMzala Nxumalo region, a region of the African National Congress. Will continue to be Mzala Nxumalo until members of the ANC decide to change it, if they want to change it. Premier Speaker, I firstly just want to speak to into yokuqala mhlambe sengishilo ukuthi ngubani. It's very unfortunate ukuthi abantu who are firstly racist, but nalaba ababenefitayo kwi-racism, they want to tell us how to experience racism. Honorable Rogers, we are the ones who are affected, not you. So you cannot tell us how to experience it. You cannot tell us how to interpret what we experience, because even though you might not be one, even though you might not be racist like other people are, but some actually are, and we, not you, Black people in this country, including myself, experience racism on a daily basis. It is not something to play around with. It is not something to score points with. On a daily basis, as I walk out of this house, I myself, I'm the one who actually experienced racism. So kuzoba kubike ukuthi kube wena ositshelayo ukuthi kufuna experience nini sisho kanjani, because sizoyikhuluma lapha esiyikhuluma khona. Abantu bakwaZulu-Natal basikhethela ukuthi sizokhuluma la and represent their interests. And one of the experiences zabo is racism on a daily basis. Hayi ukuthi sizwe ngabantu nokuthi sizwe nge-Bluetooth like you are telling us to do. Speaker, I stand here on behalf of the African National Congress to express our full approval and warmest welcome of the State of the Province address, and as delivered by our Premier, Honorable Sehlezi Galala. Khuzeni siyabonga kakhulu umenjalo. Sicabanga ukuthi usinikile umhlahlandlela and abantu bakwaZulu-Natal bayawujabulela kakhulu. You are inspiring, and your inspiring and exemplary leadership and strong work ethic shines through in your daily operations, and certainly in every paragraph of the KwaZulu-Natal SOPA 2020, which is a blueprint that maps the direction for us to follow in the new financial year and beyond. We are deeply encouraged by the commitments that you made in SOPA, which are aimed at making our communities better and safer for women and children. By the way, you did not just make commitments kulo nyaka ka 2020, but you also reflected on the commitments that we made in the previous year, and were able to indicate how far, what is the progress and how we are going to move forward, and that is appreciated. We also know and appreciate your many efforts to promote social cohesion and to make our peaceful province a place where people of different races, faiths, and political persuasions coexist in harmony and also thrive in all that they do. Having said that, Speaker, ngiyacela ukungena on COVID-19 infrastructure. When we were confronted by the new COVID-19 pandemic, as government, we managed to develop and implement a formidable and highly effective response plan, which was led by the Premier. This included the recruitment of more than 7,000 contract employees, as well as the reconfiguration of hospitals such as Doris Goodwin Richmond, and the Premier mentioned them in his speech. This new bed capacity will help us will put us in good stead really in the implementation of NHI, as many of the newly constructed wards will be easily converted into ICU wards once COVID-19 is fully behind us. But the wards that have also been created are wards that are going to be able to respect and ensure that the privacy of our community members is the privacy is actually respected. What the provincial government decided to do in this regard is to ensure that when COVID-19 funds were provided from national and the provincial coffers, we do not invest in private facilities, but we make sure that our own facilities in this province are improved, and therefore it becomes an investment moving forward. Honorable Speaker, indeed, we welcome the decline in new COVID-19 infections, which has reached an average of 500 cases per day. This has come down drastically from the 4,500 new cases that we saw during the fourth wave, and the fourth wave that was just a few months ago. It is nevertheless concerning that the new cases that we are currently seeing are largely driven by people between the ages of 5 and 35. And our concern here is that if these numbers do not go down, it means the fifth wave might actually be informed by these numbers. We are nevertheless pleased that our province has now vaccinated more than 4.7 million people. We will, however, never grow tired of encouraging our fellow compatriots to get vaccinated, because even though the new infection numbers are relatively low, COVID-19 remains an unpredictable disease, and it has shown us before that it can come back much stronger and deadlier. I must also indicate, Speaker, that we are very worried by the myths and misinformation that is out there in the communities that gets our people not to want to vaccinate. And some amongst these myths are something that says, if you get vaccinated and you are a young woman or you are a female, you are never going to be able to have children again. Some are saying if you get vaccinated and you are male, you are never going to be able to enjoy your sexual activities after you have vaccinated. And those are some of the myths that we have to deal with directly. And right now, vaccination, in addition to non-pharmaceutical interventions such as regular hand washing, wearing of face masks, and social distancing, is the only defense that we have against this deadly virus. That is why we are calling on our people to make sure that they get vaccinated. We are therefore thankful for our progress, for our progressive and visionary government led by the Premier, for supporting our new and improved integrated vaccination strategy. This new strategy will be driven largely by the district champion MECs, and they will be working very closely with Amakosi, religious leaders, the business fraternity, sports legends, and all the influencers that we have in our society. Honorable Speaker, attaining universal health coverage is one of the key resolutions of our glorious movement, the African National Congress. This means its implementation is not something that needs a negotiation, but an imperative that must be implemented. This will ensure that access to the best healthcare is not only to preserve those who are affluent, but a basic human right that all of us must enjoy. We remain immensely grateful to the Premier for the guidance that he has provided us, and for ensuring that as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we are able to prepare and be ready for the implementation of NHI. As part of NHI, we will continue improving and expanding health infrastructure as indicated by the Premier or as directed by the Premier. We commit ourselves to growing the number of clinics that need to obtain ideal clinic status, because those are actually speaking to the kind of treatment that must be received by our health workers or by our patients as they come to our facilities. Let me then quickly move to the issue of gender-based violence. Even before the start of COVID-19, whereby our country was an exponential growth in rate of gender-based violence and femicide. The African National Congress, in its 2017 NASREC conference, resolved that ANC branches, together with the ANC-led government, should strengthen the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, and specific programs were given to the government, and we have seen our government ensuring and implementing the resolutions of that conference. President Ramaphosa subsequently made a clear call to the men of South Africa to lead first and lead the fight, lead first and lead from the front. Hence, the national government implemented the emergency plan announced by President Ramaphosa and it is centered around the 5 key pillars. However, the province of KwaZulu-Natal also augmented this strategy by establishing its own gender-based violence, its own strategy against gender-based violence and femicide. And this strategy is also based on 5 pillars to fight this scourge, and those pillars are focusing on prevention, awareness, care and support to victims, strengthening the judiciary, and ensuring the economic empowerment of women. Arising from this intervention, the Department of Social Development has made sure that there are discussions and engagement between the government and society, but they've also taken a step further together with the Premier to ensure that social workers are employed so that they are able to provide the support that is needed by the society in this regard. In addition, the provincial government has increased access to psychosocial support services, reaching more than 6,600 people or 6,600 victims of gender-based violence. Ngiyakhombisa-ke lokhu ukuthi izinto esizishoyo uma ngabe sibeka imhlanhlandlela kusuke kungasikho ukukhuluma nje kuphela. We walk the talk. We have already started implementing, and ngalokho siyabonga kakhulu Khuzeni. During the 2021 financial year, government further expanded its program intensifying gender-based violence and femicide programs, femicide prevention programs in spite of COVID-19. Kusebenzekile-ke noma kukuthiwa u-COVID-19 ukhona. Our program of action has seen a province-wide distribution of Memeza panic buttons, the establishment of more Kuselega one-stop centers for victims of gender-based violence, and the establishment of more white door centers of hope. We welcome and fully celebrate the province's 365-day gender-based violence and femicide strategy to eliminate GBV and F from our communities, as we believe that this scourge is the daily concern of our community and can never be a once-off program. We are also very encouraged by this response and the progress that has already been made by the province in this regard. Thank you very much, Somlo.
Thank you, Honorable Misi Simelane. The next speaker for 4 minutes is the Honorable CM Shinga of the NFP.
Honorable Speaker, the honorable members and distinguished guests. The NFP, we move to support and welcome the sober speech delivered by the Honorable Premier in this House. However, we feel that the Honorable Premier in his speech did not fully address the effect of the July unrest, the status, as well as the recovery plan of the damage on the industrial areas, warehouses, and corruption in the KZN government, much of which was brought into light during the PPE corruption investigations, as well as the blankets in the DSD.
Honorable Speaker, as the NFP, we are very much concerned about the political intolerance, the killings and the assassination of Izinduna, Amakhosi, as well as councillors. We urge leaders, the SAPS and the Department of Community Safety and Liaison to work hand in hand in controlling and preventing these crimes. The level of crime in the province is too high and continue to be on the rise, particularly gender-based violence and contact crimes. We are not safe in our own homes, in the shopping malls or centers, in work areas, and worse, in our schools, where our learners and teachers get raped and attacked every day. Honorable Premier, we have the responsibility to ensure and guarantee safety and protection of our citizens. Honorable Speaker, we also welcome the consideration in the increase of the budget allocation towards agriculture. However, we must acknowledge the shortage of the Black-owned land programs and projects to help uplift the poorly and disadvantaged people in rural areas. To fully address the rural economic development, we must tackle the distribution of land. We appeal to the Premier and the government, KZN government, to integrate the KZN Youth Empowerment Fund program with local public universities and TVET colleges to identify and implement essential entrepreneurial programs to help curb the rising number of the unemployed graduates and also promote the independence and sharpen the entrepreneurial skills in students. Honorable Premier, we join you in congratulating the Edendale Technical Under-16 team for the good performance abroad. However, we feel we need to get closer to the sports and recreational activities in our communities, as they will help curb the unemployment and the shortage of school. In closing, Honorable Speaker, we are pleased with the Department of Sports and Rec and Arts and Culture being measured. We feel the decision is cost effective and will save the state a fairly large amount of funds. We appeal to the people of KwaZulu-Natal to participate in the census program. It is very important for us as the community to get accurate numbers, and that will help in budgeting. We say people need to stand up and be counted. Honorable Speaker, siyabonga kakhulu ngekuthuthukisa kwengqalasizinda, ikakhulukazi umgwaqo omkhulu owakhiwa uSenra le phakathi kweCato Ridge, and sibheka namathuba omsebenzi okuzowa creator. Honorable Speaker in the House, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker for 4 minutes is the Honorable Esther Rajbansi, of the leader of the MF. She is joining us from the virtual platform.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier. Your address certainly speaks to the aspirations of our youth. The Minority Front reiterates that peace is the only way to prosperity. To turn the corner, priority 1 must be peace. This means honoring KZN's monarch and traditional leaders. Fighting daily crime means having a hybrid of martial and civil law, given impending threats of a second unrest. Ridding corruption means acknowledging that government has been corrupted. To become incorruptible means strict guidelines to screening before politicians are elected and before recruiting civil servants. The private sector in South Africa consists of 2 types, white and black monopoly capitals. Both are highly regulated to meet political targets that need to look good on paper for investors, but in reality are disastrous. I debated regulation making training in 2019, and we can all see why the absence of regulations, when government fund empowerment schemes become more than an enabler, start lacking credibility in terms of input versus outputs for youth economic empowerment. The KZN Youth Fund from 2019 to 2022 should be accounting for 350 million rand as per SOPA declarations, not 50 to 100 million. Where's the money, Honorable Premier? This Honorable House requires a detailed separate report on the KZN Youth Fund through the Portfolio Committee. Does ETIA really have the capacity to incubate and mentor, or should we be setting up agencies to do this? The jobs created feel like we have reduced unemployment to below the pre-COVID 23% mark, but 28.7% means three things for KwaZulu-Natal. The census is incorrect, our population is growing faster than the economy, or we have many illegals. To date, the KwaZulu-Natal legislature has not seen the RET or the RACIT policies on which all economic development is now planned. Where's the accountability or results-based performance? The Black Industrials program of 700 million rand for 35 means 20 million rand each. Who are these recipients? In 2020, on the Pinetown oversight visit, 100% Black empowered chemical industrialists refused to meet our delegation. Honorable Speaker, the Minority Front requests oversight to these 35 recipients to ensure value for money. Operation Bula Fund is directed to cooperatives, yet as KZN, we have not yet adopted a cooperative model that works. The disharmony of business fora has history from white monopoly to mixed to now religious, ethnic, and illegal. The nature of newer fora is a recipe for corruption and requires norms and standards. Honorable Premier, schools are a disaster zone currently. Ban TikTok to get normality back. Teenage mothers are dying. Will we achieve SDG 3 by 2030? The Minority Front will never accept the racist terminology of the Phoenix massacre, which should be the South African massacre, because all deaths were the result of a failed coup. How can the ANC rise like a phoenix with this tag? This SOPA was an opportunity, Honorable Premier, to declare that cadre deployment by the ruling party has ended. If we are serious about a capable state, you failed us, Honorable Premier. Finally, the Minority Front will deal with other issues in future debates, as there is a lot of good that is being done. But the Bhagavad Gita simply instructs us, do your duty and do it well. And the Ramayana states, under a good government, the plans of the wicked will come to naught. Thank you.
And human settlements.
Siyabonga kakhulu somlomo wesishayamithetho saKwaZulu-Natal. Siyafisa ukuthi sibingelele kuwena, sibingelele undunankulu wesifundazwe saKwaZulu-Natal, uphinde abe umholi kaKhongolose la esifundazweni saKwaZulu-Natal, uKhuzeni. Sibingelele unobhala kaKhongolose, ubaba uNtuli uMdumseni. Siyabonga kakhulu bukhona bakhe. Amalunga esishayamithetho saKwaZulu-Natal wonke akhona la siyawabingelela, nabo bonke abanye abakhona kulendlu. Somlomo ngizama ukuthi ngokukhulu ukusheshsha ngiqale nje ngidlule kwezinye izinto esezike zashiwo la, zishiwo ngendlela okungeyona ngenxa yokuthi abafarisi abake bangena la bayakwazi ukuthi bakhulume izinto ezingezona, bazame ukuzenza sengathi ziyizona. Abafarisi ke labo somlomo siyabazi kusukela kudala, abanye bamala phambili bazosho ukuthi umzala Nxumalo icomrade nomholi kaKhongolose bazothi kunabaholi kaKhongolose abangamzwisisi kahle noma abambukela phansi. Again, uma uyifunda leya ncwadi ekhulumayo ukuthi umzala wayibhala wathini, uyakubona lokho bekushiwo la ukuthi akugcinanga ngalaba ekhuluma ngabo, kodwa nalaba bebemlaba saqhubeka nakho. Somlomo i-double agenda uyayibona ngqo ngokuthi kuzofakwa igama likaNobhala we-ANC ola, ngoba kuzama ukuthi i-ANC bayihlukanise phakathi. Sidlulile leso sikhathi, sesiyakwazi ukunibona, sibone ngqo emehlweneni ukuthi niyabaxovi, niyabakhohlisi. Naphila ngakho iminyaka edlule siyabantu abawuhlobo oluhlukile, siyakwazi ukunibona uma nikhuluma izinto okungezona. I-ANC ya approve ukuthi isifunda salapha enisibiza ngendawo yase Zululand kwi-district yas approve ukuthi sibe imizala nxumalo ngoba sonke kwa-ANC siyavumelana nalowo mholi nezinto ayizisho futhi simthathela phezulu. Somlomo ngiyafisa ukusho ukuthi lento eshiwoyo kuthiwe undunankulu wesifundazwe akangadonseli iqembu lenkatha entweni ekhuluma ngento yamanzi eyenziwa uThula Sizwe umeya walapha eZululand evalela indlunkulu evalela silo ukuthi singabi nawo amanzi kwakuyipolitiki eyayitshengisa ukuthi unabantu abangenandaba nobuholi nobukhosi bukaZulu, abantu abathanda ukubusebenzisa ukuthi babe omagqama ezigqukwini, babe abantu abafuna ukuthi baskore amaphoyinti ezepolitiki. Kodwa umehluko wabonakala ukuthi ngempela uma uzovala amanzi unomholi oyayathatha isinqumo athi awavalwa amanzi lapha. uThula Sizwe wathatha isinqumo sokuthi awavalwa amanzi lapha endlunkulu. Namhlanje lokho kwenziwa imeya yenkatha, sazi futhi ukuthi ukhulumile nenkatha ukuthi kwenziwe lokho. Namhlanje bazoma lapha phambi kwethu bazozenza ongcwele ngcwele bekhuluma into engekho ngoba vele ubuholi bakwaZulu abakazi baba nendaba nabo. Ubukhosi bakwaZulu buze bakwazi ukuthi bube kulesimo bukusona namhlanje ngenxa yokuthi uKhongolose uphathe ngo-1994 isilo esikhotheme uBhejane ephuma esiqiwini wayebukelwa phansi engaziwa na ukuthi uyini iqembu lenkatha. Wafika uKhongolose kwalungiswa yonke into, amandla akhe ambuyela. Ngisho imicimbi yakwaZulu yabuyelwa isithunzi sayo, yanikezwa imali into yayingenziwa inkatha ngoba bekhompyutha naye nobuholi bakhe. Umbuso wakaZulu sondele kakhulu eqenjini nasebuholini obukhona kuKhongolose okuyinhlangano yabantu. Laba bathi sisazojahana kusukela manje kuze kushaya u-2024 nizobe nijahanela nodwa, asinasikhathi senu, asinithathi serious. Wanhlula umbuso, wanhlula niphethe kusukela ngama-70s, abantu banikhipha ngo-2004 nakho izindlu ey'ncane eziyamakorotisi amabhokisi kamentshisi nabukela abantu phansi nakhishwa. Namhlanje niyi-opposition nje ngenxa yokuthi nakhishwa ninikiwe ithuba. Namhlanje nithole umasipala labeni batholile ngenxa ye-DA ne-EFF, ngiyakukhohlwa lokho. Nenza sengathi nawina nikaze niwine masipala nini. Ngiyaqhubeka nobhodi, akukho la inawina khona. Kufanele sinitshele niyikona ningazikhohlisi nize nihambele phezulu. Anikaze niwine emkhandlu. Imikhandlu eminingi niyiphethe ngenxa ye-EFF ne-DA. So abantu bakwaZulu-Natal abalikhohliwe usize nabafaka kulona. Asikhohliwe ukuhlupheka nasifaka kubona. Soze sanilibala indlela nasihlukumeza ngayo before 1994. Somlomo ngiyafisa ukuthi ngisho ukuthi zehlile ihlathi eqenjini lenkathi izolo bebona indlunkulu iphelele la. Zehlile iqhomo zabuyela emumva, kwacaca ukuthi uKhongolose uyazi ukuthi uma kuthiwa kuyaholwa kukhokhelwa kanjani. Nisebenzisa ubuholi nendlunkulu kaZulu nifuna ukuthi nithole abalandeli abaningi ngoba nina ningcolile, aninakho ukulunga. Nazi ukuthi abantu bakithi kufanele basetshenziswe nisebenzisa indlunkulu. Abantu ababethena abafana nani, abantu ababethena bangathatha umbuso kaZulu bafuna ukuwusebenzisa bawusebenzisele ukuthi baskore amaphoyinti. Inkatha kulona iqembu ongalethemba, bathenjwa ngoba benzeni ngoba bangcolile. Somlomo ngiyafisa nje ukusho ukuthi njengoba bekhuluma kanje bethi hayi bona basebekhuluma ukuthi sizoba i-welfare state, undunankulu ufuna ukwenza lo hulumeni ube welfare state. Bona behluleka ukulekelela abantu bakithi ngakho konke. Ugogo wami washona ehola igrant ka-R105 emva kwenyanga ezintathu ngoba imali yonke yayehla ngomlenze ngaphansi kombuso wakaZulu enaniwuphethe. Namhlanje senikhohliwe, kufanele sinitshele abantu banazi umnjalo benu. Somlomo ngiyafisa ukuthi ngisho kuthiwe njengoba kuthiwa i-ANC ayibekile eqhulwini ukwakhiwa kwezindlu nokuhlala kwabantu. Somlomo undunankulu ukhulume kakhulu ngohlelo lokwakhiwa kwezindlu kulesifundazwe nokuhlaliswa kwabantu. Umuntu obengalalele okhuluma leyo nto ngoba abantu bafuna ukuzwa lokho abakuzwayo. Uma ukhuluma ngohlelo lokwakhiwa kwezindlu kulesifundazwe uyakubona kushesha kuya phambili ngokushesha. Buya ubuyele emumva ubheke ukuthi inkatha before 1994 yakhe izindlu enjani. Hamba uye lapha eThuba Lethu eMelmoth, hamba uye eBabanango, hamba uye eFafa, hamba uye eDannhauser. Yakhela abantu bakithi o2 room namhlanje bawile. Siyabavusa bonke ngenxa kalondunankulu othi asibavuse. Ngenxa loKhongolose othi asibavusele abantu bakithi.
siyababhidliza abanye sibaqala kabusha sibakhela izindlu ezidecent ngoba wathi undunankulu asakhe izindlu nathi singakwazi ukulala kuzona ungahlale esithabathabeni somuzi kodwa uhambe uyokwakhela abantu 2 room wayo namhlanje sibakhela indlu siyifaka uJojo tank siyifaka uceiling board size siyifakele nogesi lokhongolo sokhona namhlanje ayikho siyishinge nakho ngenxa londunankulu enithi akenzi lutho kodwa nibe nazi ukuthi ninontaba kayikhonjwa hamba emkhandlweni eniyiphethe emsinga uhambe emkhandlweni eniyiphethe ubone emzinyatha amanzi akhonani awekho up until today ngisho kweyodwa iward ngenxa yenkatha eyabakhohlisi nabafarisi ngiyafisa ukusho ukuthi somlomo kukona konke okwenzakalayo uma bekhuluma ngento infrastructure backlog i-infrastructure backlog ingoba wazi kwenzakalani undunankulu beka izinto eziningi la izolo ezicacisayo ukuthi kwenziwani uhlelo lwamanzi okukhulunywa ngalo le province ukucacisile ukuthi kune water master plan sinohlelo neqhinga lokuthi sishintshe into yamanzi kwi-province so ke asinayo into yokuthi asenzi lutho kuyasetshenzwa kuya phambili siyazi kuyazwela kushaya enyameni ngoba nifise ngathi kungathiwa kwenziwa lutho kodwa abantu bayabona ukuthi niyabakhohlisa uhlelo lokwakhiwa kwezindlu lolindela uyabona ke lo nothi uhambe waye Lamonti yabona ayikho into ebuhlungu ngokuthi uma usenhluphekweni wonke umuntu ufuna ukuyibuka ngawe usizi lomuntu omnyama kwaqalwa ngalo kudala namanje uRogers usafuna ukusitshengisa ukuthi umuntu omnyama usizi lwakhe angadlala ngalo kangakanani akuve kubuhlungu ukuthi ame lapha phambi kwethu azokhosha akhoshe ngokuthi uthatha abantu bakithi abahluphekile.
You must refer to a member as honorable.
I withdraw, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Rogers, with all due respect, yes, he knows I respect him. Kodwa kubuhlungu ukuthi alande abantu bakithi abasosizini abalethela ngoba efuna ukuthi kuzobukwa yena. Azaqhoshe athi bakhona la. Ahamba athulale khona u2 days. Yini u2 days? Yini u2 days bese uthi uyayazi inhlupheko yabantu bakithi. Ngenxa yokuthi abantu bakithi bahluphekile nifuna ukudlala ngabo ngenxa yokuthi abantu bakithi basosizini nifuna ukudlala ngabo nifuna ukuskora ama point. Let me tell you I'll say this in English so that you hear me well. Honorable Premier, Honorable Speaker, the Department of Human Settlements has taken a decision that the issue of Olindela, I heard you are calling them transit camp. It's no longer transit camp, it's Olindela. You should have listened to the Premier. That's why you are saying it doesn't matter to you, because you don't understand what it means. We have taken a decision that the issue of the Olindela, the Department of Human Settlements is taking them over. We are going to implement them, Premier, as you want us to implement them. And it's going to, with speed, efficiency, will quicken the tempo, will eradicate all of them. That is the decision. So you can just sit down uphole abantu bakithi bazoba right sizoya kubo bayakubona ukuthi umkhohlisi akekho umuntu ongahamba ohlala u2 days bese ethi ukwazi inhlupheko uhambe lapho ubuyele emzini wakho omkhulu ulale kamnandi udle kahle bese uthi wazi inhlupheko udlale ngabantu bakithi ubancoma ukuthi bakuphathe kahle ingoba abantu bakithi balungile uthatha iadvantage somlomo siyafisa ukuqhubeka sithi namuhla usuku olukhulu la
Ngicela ubambe isikhathi ngicela uthi kozololo kancane honorable MEC. Honorable Mncwango, what rule are you rising on? Ngizongamzwa kahle.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm rising on roll 57(1)D.
57(1)D. Asizwe mfoka Mncwango ukuthi honorable MEC, will you take a question from the member?
No, Honorable Speaker, anginazo isikhathi semsangano.
Sit down, Honorable
kunomsebenzi engizowenza la.
Sit down, Honorable Mncwango. You may continue. Sit down, Honorable Mncwango.
But he can't say umsangano.
I won't do that.
Sit down.
But Speaker, he can't say umsangano. I'm rising on a point of order, but he can't say umsangano. There's a point I'm rising on the roll. He can't say umsangano.
I said to the MEC, Honorable MEC, will you take a question? If you say to me, Ute, umsangano, I assume ube ubhekisa ku speaker, which will be a serious matter.
Okay.
I did not hear that.
No, he did
If
say.
he did say that, if you did say that to Speaker, Honorable Sibia, it would be a serious matter because I didn't hear that. You may withdraw it if you were saying that.
Somlomo ngiyabonga bengisho nje ngiphendula wena kodwa I withdraw Somlomo. Somlomo.
I allow you to continue. I pardon you.
Thank you Somlomo sibonga kakhulu. Somlomo njengoba simila undunankulu wathatha igxathu lokuthi zonke izigodlo
Oh, Honorable ngesikhathi siqala lakhaliwashi ngiyaxolisa.
Awu siyabonga kakhulu.
Nabashwe. The next speaker for 4 minutes is the Honorable M.E. Pakati, who's the leader of the ATM.
Somlomo asibingelele ndunankulu amalungu esishamthetho siyabingelela. Somlomo sivule nje ngokuthi siyinhlangano ye-ATM siyakholelwa kuxolo kwizinto zonke. Sizoma las encourage ukuthi cha uxolo masilifuna asixolelaneni ngokuqinisekileyo sikwazi ukuthi sixolelane sibambisane sabantu abamnyama. Si-ATM ke siyayamukela inkulumo ka Premier ayibekile izolo futhi ke ukhulume ngezinto esizaziyo ukuthi impela ziyabahlupha abantu bakithi futhi bakhathazekile ngazo. Okuningi okukhulumile sisazoqondana neminyango mabebuya bezosichazela ukuthi yilokhu bazokwenza kanje nalokhu bazokwenza kanje. Kodwa sifuna ukuhlala kubona yilokho esahlala kubona unyaka odlulile Honorable Premier. Kusenamadamu lapha esingazi ukuthi lamadamu nje babantu bakithi bengenamanzi kanje asakuthiwa lamadamu are privately owned. Asicela ndunankulu ukuyilungise lento ngoba ukushoda kwamanzi KwaZulu-Natal kuseyinto esikhathaza ngendlela eyisimangaliso. But asiphinde sifike sisho ukuthi we are not going to tolerate lento yamadamu are privately owned. Zonke izinto azibuyele kubantu bakithi abamnyama. Ngiyezwa ke ukuthi nesikhalo sezindlu sikhona futhi ushilo nawe wathi uyasaddress isikhalo sezindlu. Nomhlaba ke lo osebelungwini sicela ubuye phela ukuze sikwazi ukwakhela abantu bakithi izindlu kuwona. Asiphinde futhi speaker sisho ukuthi akukhulumile undunankulu ukuthi uzozama ukuvula amathuba omsebenzi. Lokho sikubhekile ngamehlo omabili. Kodwa siyafuna futhi ukuthi masibenza lamathuba omsebenzi sibheke ukuthi ezinye zeindlela zi-sustainable or not sustainable. Asigcine ke ngokuthi asingeke sizoma la sizokhuluma ngokuthi sahlala kolindela noma sangahlala kolindela. Mina nje ngisuka kwami kodwa ngiyayazi umuzwa wabantu abahleli kolindela. Ngicela ke singasebenzisi inhlungu yabantu bakithi ngokuthi sizodlala la. Akekho umuntu omhlophe ongathi si disadvantagewe iqembu elibusayo. Into esidisadvantagile umbuso wobandlululo. Thank you, Speaker.
The next speaker is the Honorable S.E. Manqele, the leader of ACDP for 4 minutes, the Bishop.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, all protocol observed, greeting you in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. So, as ACDP, would like to congratulate our Honorable Premier, Sihle Zikalala, on a wonderful speech that he has delivered. And we applaud the Premier for considering the poor people of our province. We welcome, Premier, the renovation of the Mangete Airport, which amounted 10.3 million. However, our concern was that only 50 jobs were mentioned yesterday. I'm not sure whether it was a misprint or was the actually number that was obtained. According to the Premier speech, the issue of water, Premier, that 80% of people with water since 1994, we have got a question mark. Because if you look at the KwaZulu-Natal, it seems as if only 20% of people with water. I understand we may have 80% of water schemes, but a number of water schemes, Premier, they are running short of water. If I can make the example from where I am coming from, we didn't have water since I was born. Speaker, we are pleased that stricter measures will be carried out with regards to illegal possessions of arms. We urge the Premier to ensure that this is carried out, thus resulting in eliminating the illegal use of firearms, creating the safer communities. Ukufa kwabantu nokubulawa kwabo kungenzeki lutho, Premier, kuyisibhobo esihlala njalo sisibulala, ikakhulukazi thina esingabafundisi esiphinde sifihle abantu, ubone ukuthi ufihla imizimba yabantu usuku nosuku kodwa kungabi bikho ukujeza kwabantu abangababulala. We are also pleased that 8.7 million is allocated for the construction and maintenance of road infrastructure. However, as ACDP, we feel that emerging contractors should get assistance from the financial institutions, taking into consideration the criteria for tenders are very challenging to attain. And the issue of tenders, I don't know what we could do on other side to formulate the permanent construction teams for infrastructure, which is easily to access with more quality work and easily to provide maintenance work at any time. With these few words, Premier, we thank you very much for the speech delivered yesterday. Thank you so much.
The next speaker for 12 minutes on behalf of the ANC is the Honorable R. Pillay MEC Etia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable members, distinguished guests. May I take the opportunity to recognize, if my eyes are still serving me well, Archbishop Napier, who was present in the House, all attendees and members of the public. Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. I'm pleased to see that the members are still able to have some fun when debating very serious matters. But let me start with just a few responses to some issues that can't go unchallenged. And the first would be that to remind you that when the blankets issue broke, it was the Premier who moved with speed, directed that an investigation be done, which was concluded in a record 2 months people were suspended, criminal charges were laid, and a new process of transparency on procurement was initiated with every transaction published on Treasury websites. That was a benchmark for a new approach. The fact that there are challenges at the moment with the NPA, for whatever reason, being unable to take its prosecution to a conclusion is correctly a matter that should be taken up. But that cannot be laid at the door of our Premier. That cannot be laid at the door of this provincial government. Honorable Shlabisa, I think we always listen with respect to you. We wish you well in your wish to win power. And time will tell. But it will never be enhanced by misinformation or disinformation in the type that I've just illustrated with this blanket scenario. I think, Honorable Rogers, you didn't reflect on the Minister of Finance's speech yesterday or the other day. I'm not sure if you did, but if you did, you should, in all honesty, have reflected the positive vibes that have come out of that budget. The fact that we are beginning to manage our debt. We're not over the hill yet, definitely. But it was the first hopeful signs after a long time that we're beginning to get to grips with this very, very serious challenge. Of course, we won't be embarrassed by being accused of being a social welfare state. We don't believe we are, because the history of the ANC is one of having a mixed economy, dealing with each issue on the balance of evidence of that particular issue. But if you're going to accuse us of being a welfare state because we want to look after our poor when they are in a difficult times, then we will accept that charge. We will be proud of it, and we will continue to do so. Honorable Shlabisa, again, I think your statistics need some revisiting, and perhaps your researchers should be more thorough in their work. The clothing and textile sector is one of a few sectors that is showing growth. And that's because of the initiative of the clothing and textile master plan, which has changed the tariff policy. It has provided incentives by way of the clothing stores setting targets where they will increase. They were buying, their percentages were roughly between 30 and 40% buying local content. They were importing 60 to 70%. They have committed to raising their local content target to 65%, and that is why we're seeing local companies getting orders. That is why we're seeing more local jobs being created in the clothing and textile sector. I know I'm not going to have enough time to deal with each sector in this debate, but I will be able to deal with it when I have my budget debates. Honorable Premier, I believe that posterity will record this SOPA as representing a critical turning point for our beloved province of KwaZulu-Natal. It is clear, Premier, that you have correctly set out several priorities, chief amongst them being recovery of the economy, economic growth, and job creation. Historians will record that our province withstood, survived, and is now rising despite a triple whammy of recession, COVID-19, and the July unrest. We fervently hope that the Ukraine conflict will remain a Ukraine conflict and not spread beyond its borders. However, we are mindful that we are part of the global world and cannot avoid the ripple effects of every major world event. This triple whammy has hit us hard. We are under no illusion about that. But I'm also under no illusion that because we've worked hard, KZN is rising. So quite correctly, the central pillars of SOPA 2022 has been economic growth, job creation, and social cohesion. And these are the tasks for all of us, a united KwaZulu-Natal effort. COVID-19 was not of our making. We had to respond to it. The marshalling of our resources nationally and provincially, financially and human capital, and the contribution of our scientific community has been remarkable, indeed exceptional. It will take a particular type of small-mindedness to not recognize this and offer commendation. And so far, I've not heard a word from the opposition about that spectacular effort. So I do so on behalf of this House and the majority of our people. I salute the efforts of our MEC for Health, Ms. Nomagugu Simelane. Her head of department, Dr. Sandile Shabalala, and the last time I looked, some 48,000 employees of the Department of Health. They rose in a time of crisis to meet the challenge. Many paid the ultimate price. We salute them, we honor them, and the records of this legislature must reflect that. Some would say it would be inappropriate for me to comment on issues of the royal household. But I think it's how far we've come in our democracy and nation building that I feel it is correct to do so, that I have the duty to do so, and I certainly have the right to do so. So I think it's appropriate for me to briefly reflect on the institution of the Royal House in KwaZulu-Natal and its central role in the history of our province up to and including the 21st century and our current constitutional democracy. We recall with great admiration and appreciation the contribution of His Majesty King Zwelithini Kabaka Zulu to the cohesion of our province. Even when His Majesty chastised us, we took it in the spirit of fatherly advice, and over a period of almost half a century, ultimately he entrenched a special grace, decorum, and dignity to the institution. His Majesty embraced all the people of KwaZulu-Natal, and in so doing earned the love and respect of all its people. The history of the ANC is inextricably linked to the history of our traditional leaders. This is a matter of historical fact. No amount of shallow political posturing will change that. We therefore commend our Premier and indeed the Speaker for the great care, sensitivity, and effort in protecting the dignity and integrity of the institution of the Royal House in KwaZulu-Natal. The July 2021 unrest has quite correctly received repeated attention in the reports and debates of this House. We have already seen one report by the President's expert panel released, and the Commission.
Order. Honorable Speaker. A non-member and a non-service officer does not enter the House.
I hope my 30 seconds is saved. So we have seen one report by the expert panel and the two commissions, the Commission for Religious and Linguistic Rights and the Human Rights Commission, are also leading investigations and in due course will provide their reports. And there are many important matters of fact that need proper clarification. Whatever the findings, it is irrefutable that the matter of social cohesion and nation building must find expression in our program of action. We commend you, Premier, for highlighting this priority of healing wounds and bringing communities together through practical programs. We urge you further, Honorable Premier, to reach out to the many, indeed majority of patriotic citizens and civil society formations who want to be part of a purposeful, credible, and sustainable nation-building program. This is not just a critical social need, nor is it just a key objective of the national democratic society we seek to build. It is also central to our economic recovery plan. Economic recovery requires stability. Economic recovery requires social cohesion. Economic recovery requires confidence. The responsibility for this lies on the shoulders of all of us in this House, but we accept that a special responsibility lies on our shoulders as the ANC because society looks to us to lead in this task. Nobody else can. I may point out, Honorable Premier, that through its 110 years, it is the ANC that has united us and built our South African nation. We are called upon to do so again. No one else can. In dealing with this responsibility, I find myself recalling that moment when Chris Hani was assassinated and our country teetered on the brink of the abyss of a bloody and destructive civil war, that it was President Mandela in his capacity as president of the ANC, he was not president of the country at the time, it was he who had to go on national television to pull us back from the brink and lead us forward. That is the leadership that our people expect from the ANC, and I have every confidence that that is the leadership they will receive. We have seen that there are those who, for narrow, expedient political gain, are quite prepared to deepen divisions. They shamelessly exploit fear and would twist a knife in the wound for electoral gain. They are past masters of the divide and rule tactic. They are a small minority, but who cannot be left unchecked and unchallenged. And I pose the question to all the parties: what is your role in uniting the nation and building social cohesion? So social cohesion and nation building remains central to economic recovery, economic growth, and job creation. Our work in building the social compact that underpins economic recovery, reconstruction, and transformation is well underway. We have brought together government, business, labor, and civil society in the KZN Economic Council. We have developed a social compact. We have disaggregated our economy. We're not going to have a spray and pray approach. We have disaggregated our economy into 14 sectors, and we are developing approaches to each of these sectors that talks to their particular needs. So whether it's agriculture and agro-processing, or clothing and textile, the creative industries, the informal sector, manufacturing sector, mining, oceans economy, or tourism, each one is getting dedicated attention. Let's deal with Mara Phones. Mara Phones is not just investment. Mara Phones is a business that failed because of special circumstances, chief amongst them being COVID-19. That's not unusual. That is the way business operates. Unfortunately, I have to cease. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MEC. The next speaker for 5 minutes on behalf of the IFP is Honorable VF Hlabisa, the Leader of Official Opposition.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members, Honorable Pillay, my figures were correct. I made reference to what the Premier committed with regard to the textile corridor, Newcastle, Ladysmith, Escort. That is correct. Honorable Speaker, it has been very unfortunate, the level in which the debate deteriorated in some few minutes ago. I'm sure people who are watching this debate, some of them are disappointed of what they see being done by honorable members. Even if you do not agree with the person, but you should not rise before what is normal. As a fact, the Mzala Nxumalo book was disputed. I'm telling you the fact. Eso Pahad disputed this book. The other people go to Mtumseni Ntuli will tell you. Honorable Speaker, it is true. Basacasukile abanye bethu imphumela yokhetho yangonyaka odlulisa azothatha isikhathi ukuthi bathi come into terms with it. Abantu bakwaZulu-Natal bazikhulumele bona ngomhla ka-21 November. Basazozikhulumela bona futhi ngo-2024. On behalf of the IFP welcomes the provincial government.
Honorable Hlabisa, bengicela ukuthi gozololo kancane. Hlonitshwa Sonjica sukuma kweyiphi rule?
Ngiyabonga Somlomo, ngisukuma ku rule 57D.
Manake siye lapho ngizo-check-a mina kumhlonishwa uHlabisa. You can rise, honorable member, ukuthi ungawuthatha na umbuzo.
Yeah, after the end of my debate.
Akazuthatha sihlalo, you may.
No, after the end, angwesabi.
You may continue, honorable Akautati. You may continue, honorable Hlabisa.
The IFP welcomes the provincial government effort to engage the national government in order to save sub-ref operations and jobs. The IFP congratulates the 2021 matric class for good results under the challenges of the pandemic. Of course, we have not turned the corner. Honorable MEC, pit toilets must be eradicated, provision of quality infrastructure, and employment of enough educators must get urgent attention. Currently, we have 866 vacant posts that are not yet filled up, but promise to be filled on Monday, 28 February. At Egudubegeni High School, Ondini, and Inkosana Primary School at Winen, each of these schools have 5 vacant posts, and education cannot take its proper shape in this format. The IFP welcomes the announcement made by the Minister of Finance on Wednesday that 3.3 billion was set aside to absorb medical interns and community service doctors. Honorable Speaker, this has not solved the problem. Be that it may, the problem still remains. In KZN, all medical officers' posts are freezed as we speak. Our communities are deprived optimum medical services. This is an indictment to the people of KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable Premier. Honorable Premier, Dr. Prixliga Isegaseme Memorial Hospital must open its doors to the public at OPD and casualty. Honorable Premier, honor the promise of houses made to the people who were moved from Kwamnyandu to Zamani and Isipingo for the smooth running of the 2010 Soccer World Cup. This promise remains not fulfilled. During the rainy season, Isipingo gets flooded. Zamani is worse. The temporal structures there are located adjacent to the sewage tank that service the whole of Umlazi, and the stench is unbearable. Honorable Premier, we noted and welcomed the call for back to basics in the local government sphere of government. As the IFP, we are not happy the way the MEC for Kokta is using courts to fight political battles. The issue of Mtubatuba is a disgrace, which is going to be followed by the issue of Kanyagute. Lastly,
Your time has expired.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The next speaker for 13 minutes on behalf of the ANC is the Honorable K.I. Mshengu, MEC Education.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, Honorable Premier, and Honorable members of the House. Just on 3 issues, Madam Speaker, which I want to respond to. Honorable Tlhabisa, you threatened us that by 2024 will be gone. I think you meant that yourself will be gone after Ubamtule has taken over. Obuseshilo on record ukuthi ngo-2024 uzophatha kasho wena Baba Tlhabisa. Manje sisholo ukuthi silungise lelo daba ukuthi we think it was a mistake. We will also suggest, Honorable Tlhabisa, that you read the SIU report carefully, because it does give an account of the work that has been done insofar as implementation of the findings by the SIU. It does give an account of the people that have been expelled and those cases that are currently in progress. I may as well say that one of the persons that has been expelled from the Department of Education, we see her on Facebook and other social media proudly donning the IFP regalia. Now, I thought I need to indicate that so that it doesn't become an issue of the ANC because the ANC is in government. Well, Honorable Rogers, we will not stop talking about racism and race as long as the majority of you still bask on privileges of whiteness. And these are ill-gotten privileges which accrue to you not because we are better than us, but because of the skin pigmentation. These are facts of history that we cannot be hoodwinked to forget simply because we say we're in democracy. You continue to harp on inequality as if this is a phenomenon that came with the ANC government. These are the conditions that your forebears created because they never saw us as African as deserving of humanity. It is the same route that we are taking because when you go to visit Ulindela, as you claim to have been invited, by the way, we know that we were not invited. You went there for political reasons. Those people, none of them is a white person. Why? Why? It's exactly because to them, when they are a political market, you claim to have invited them. I've been looking both on my right and on my left. All those that we have invited to parade them here are Africans, so that they bolster your political ambitions. So kulaba bakwethu invite Honorable Rogers, sifisa ukunizwela. Ungakho ke sithi funa simanyane ukuze sidefeate ubandlululo osaqhubeka njengamanje. Madam Speaker, yesterday the Premier delivered a detailed account on the state of the province and her people. It was an account which was frank about the challenges we face and bold about the progress made in changing the lives of our people for better. I am confident that today, having listened to the State of the Province address yesterday, the people of KwaZulu-Natal woke up with a renewed hope that indeed tomorrow will be better than today, as today was better than yesterday. When people elect a government, the central expectation is that the government they call their own will do that which they cannot do themselves to improve their livelihoods and to make their lives valuable. As eloquently argued by Keynes in his book titled The End of Laissez-faire, the important thing for government is not to do things which individuals are doing already, but to do things which at present are not done at all. This injunction puts governments at the cutting edge of development and innovation. It is a demand that, as you correctly pointed out, Mr. Premier, governments cannot leave the fate of our people to the hands of the free market. Professor Mariana Mazzucato, in her book titled The Entrepreneurial State, argues convincingly that the state, and I quote, should act as a force for innovation and change, not only de-risking risk-averse private actors, but also boldly lead the way with a clear and courageous vision, exactly the opposite image of the state that is usually sold. The neoliberals in this house, because of their inability to comprehend and appreciate the role of the state, have gone on a fundamentally flawed drive to lynch on you, Mr. Premier, for the government's position to engage the Department of Minerals and Energy to work towards taking over the full operations of SAPREF as a state-owned oil company. These neoliberals, who do not speak on behalf of the people, believe that the role of government is only to the extent of making the environment conducive for business to thrive. To them, possible massive loss of jobs do not matter as long as profits are protected. Because dishonesty is their lifeblood. If the government doesn't intervene and jobs are lost, they will in turn instigate people against their own government. They will invite people like Honorable Rogers has done and parade the African people here and say, look at what the government is doing, it has deserted you. While on the other hand, they are arguing that the government should not should not intervene. When the private sector fails, the state must intervene for the public good. And we say, Mr. Premier, you and your government must not retreat on this position. In his article titled Mission-Oriented Innovation Policy and Dynamic Capabilities in the Public Sector, Professor Rainer Cattell argues that, and I quote, in order to tackle the grand challenges of the 21st century, innovation policy needs to shift from the existing support and measure approach, which is about finding market failure, fix it with support structure and measure impact, to innovation policy and lead to learn approach, which is about creating and shaping markets with variety of policy instruments, with open-ended impact on horizons, and learn through wider social engagement and coordination. Therefore, Mr. Premier, the call is to solve grand challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality through innovation policies. Innovation is inherently uncertain process with long lead times and involving significant amount of risk. For development to take place, a responsible government, like your government, Mr. Premier, cannot contract out of risk associated with innovation. All things that we have in the world today were never always there. It took innovations to usher all the 4 generations of revolution, and consequently what happens in the future is again a function of innovation. And as Professor Mazzucato argues again, a confident government recognizes fully that the business sector might talk about taxes, but walk to where new technology and market opportunities are. Therefore, the role of a government worthy to be called the government of the people, like your government, Mr. Premier, must not only be worried about what is currently obtaining, but must break the grounds, the new grounds, to do things which at present are not done at all. To attract investment, to attract the private sector investment, we must go beyond regulating the environment, but assume a lead in new technologies and defining new market opportunities. We also know that at the center of innovation is courageous young people with daring imagination. It is this imagination that must be harnessed for the benefit of growth and development. The government of the people, led by the ANC under stewardship, Mr. Premier, has already led the way through the establishment of KZN Youth Empowerment Fund, whose budget will increase to 100 million in 2022. The success of this fund over the past years is well recorded in your State of the Province address. The call we want to make today is for the fund to assist the research and development of new ideas that are not yet bankable. The history of major and groundbreaking developments in the world teaches us that it is governments that always lead the way in the innovation by investing in research and development, and with the private sector coming into the party to develop products further. Young people of KwaZulu-Natal should be allowed to imagine new things that have never existed before, and have their government helping them to develop such imaginations into products that will help the economy to grow. We must not be a government that is scared to take risks associated with innovation. However, this should not be understood as a call for government to be reckless. We call for a certain percentage of the 100 million to be set aside for research and development of new products and the creation of new markets. The diagnostic report of the National Development Plan, Madam Speaker, argues that, and I quote, to create more employment, we need either high levels of savings or we need to borrow savings from elsewhere in the form of foreign direct investment. In order to attract investment, we need a higher skills base. To have the higher skills base, we need to teach mathematics and science and prepare people differently. If we don't have employment, we cannot deal with poverty, nor can we deal with inequality, unquote. Both skills development and innovation are a function of exposure, as well as quality and relevant education for all. As we have achieved universal access to education in KwaZulu-Natal, the focus, as we have directed, Mr. Premier, should be on improving quality of education and keeping all learners in school until completion. As reported in the State of the Province address, the province of KwaZulu-Natal is on a right path in the provision of quality education, as evidenced by the increase in the quality of passes produced. The province is ranked the second in the country in terms of maths and physical science intake, and consequently the enhanced performance in maths and physical science in the previous year accords well with the future of our province. So when the speaker from EMF says our schools are a disaster, we really find struggle to understand this accusation. We don't dispute that there are still challenges in a number of schools in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. But to refer that they're a disaster when records show an increase in terms of the quality of passes, we think it is simply standing on the opposite side of the truth, and probably to save the last seat that she has in this legislature, which definitely is going in 2024. The province must produce relevant skill set necessary for our economy at an alarming speed. In accordance with the letter and spirit of social compact, the Department of Education, higher learning institutions, and industries in the province should move with speed to align requisite skills and curriculum offered. We know that the Human Resource Development Council is seized with this matter under your leadership, Mr. Premier. We can also report that the Department of Education will this year convert 5 schools in the province to be fully fledged technical schools, which will offer access to the children who are unable to afford fees.
Your time has expired.
Thank you so much.
Honorable members, allow me to call upon the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, the Honorable S. Sigalala, for 30 minutes to respond to the debate.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to start by acknowledging and recognizing you as a leader of this House, the Chief Whip of the ruling party, the leader of the official opposition, the esteemed Cardinal Napier, and thanks for gracing us today. All political leaders were with us. The Director General, honorable members of this House. Yesterday, we delivered the State of the Province address to the people of KwaZulu-Natal under the theme, Turning the Corner in KwaZulu-Natal, building on our resilience, forging lasting peace, creating jobs, and ushering in sustainable growth. I wish to take this opportunity to unpack a few things. There is an acknowledgement that there is a crisis in the province. A crisis is about the lack of jobs. A crisis is about violence, killings of leaders, and killings in the society because of criminal activities. There is a need and a call for all of us to unite. This unity must bring us peace. This unity must bring us a lasting peace. But this unity must equally help us as government to create jobs and usher in an economic growth and sustainable livelihood. It should not be only the economic growth that is sustainable, but the livelihood of the people of the province must equally be sustainable. The theme was derived from the consultation and engagements, as well as the input from various sections of the society. And once again, we thank all the people who contributed. We as the African National Congress were still remaining motivated and aspiring to the ideal of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, equal and prosperous society. I affirm, as I said yesterday, day by day, we're eradicating poverty. Day by day, we're building a non-racial society. We are driven by the cause of the National Democratic Revolution. Its major of human civilization is about the restoration of the dignity of the poor. Honorable Speaker, I welcome contributions made by various members. Honorable Taluza, thanks. You have gone to town reminding us about our background that shaped us to be where we are. And thanks for also indicating and unpacking things that have been done in some of the municipalities like Umsunduzi. For those who want to distort what we say and only quote headlines, we have said we have not done enough to turn around the corner in Umsunduzi. We have not only said we failed the people, we have not done enough. We are in a process of restoring the city of Umsunduzi. Yesterday I spoke about Kokta Misa initiative, which is about rebuilding this town. And the very same expression was quoted in that article by the honorable member, Honorable Rogers, choose to tell us about the headline, not the content of the story. Such opportunism. Honorable Smelane, thanks for raising issues and for updating us about the state of health and for reality that if we didn't collectively as government respond to COVID-19, we would have not saved life. And I'm sure many in the opposition would also appreciate that reality. May I also caution that those who are saying posts are frozen, we must be clear, Honorable Khabisa. There is no medical post that is frozen, only administrative, and even the moratorium is up to March. Honorable Takur Rajpans, we will have time to engage with you on issues you have raised. Honorable Spear, thanks for detailing the progress you are making in terms of housing. And I must quickly try to deal with this issue raised by Honorable Hlabisa of KwaMnyandu. 1,000 households from that KwaMnyandu transit camps were relocated to Konopia. And as I reported yesterday, others will be relocated to Nkanku Road project that is already taking place. But thanks, Honorable Hlabisa, for encouraging us to finish this project. We don't like anyone living in a transit camp or in Lindela. Honorable Pagati, you continue to raise this matter, and I think you are fair. The issue of privately owned dams needs speed attention. We have already taken up that matter with Honorable Minister Mkhunu, and he is going to attend to it. Honorable Shinga, we welcome all issues you've raised and for challenging us to go deeper to issues of the causes of the unrest and all of those issues, because they are central on the question of reconciliation and nation building. Honorable Mangele, I like the spirit you raise issues and the fairness. Firstly, mhlambe njengomfundisi, you made a telling statement. I will assume you are a bit older than me in terms of age. But you say, since you were born, you've never had access to water at your house. You are saying so here. You yourself have been a government official, not just a public representative. You have served KwaZulu-Natal. You have lived under the government. There was a government of Pretoria led by Botha and de Klerk. There was a government of KwaZulu. They never provided water. We apologize that it happened. We were not in government, we were fighting for liberation. We commit that we will bring water. Even KwaZulu-Natal, even Mtubatuba. And the fact that we will bring water We attest that we've built houses, kwahlabisa izindlu igcwele all over. Akhona water eyodwa engenazo. Done by this ANC government. Honorable Pillay, thank you. And there is quite confusion if you don't analyze deeper. Now we speak about the issue of the SEZ, and people don't want to understand what the SEZ is. The SEZ becomes a special economic zone. It is demarcated. It then gets into be a precinct. And in that space, you then get incentives. Now, I'm not going to accuse members if they don't have that detail. Now, the reality is that on one hand, we are working to establish a physical SEZ, which will be physical. But on another hand, we are building industries or industrialists who will relocate to this SEZ. So people, through the master plan from national government, have entered into the industry. They are already working. You can go, Honorable Shabis, I can have comfort to go with you to Lady Smith as well as to Mandeni. There is a growth of the textile, of clothing and textile industry. The fact that the physical SEZ is not yet there, it doesn't mean there are no people who are producing. The advantage of the SEZ will be that once the SEZ is demarcated and developed in terms of infrastructure, these industrialists will be relocated so that they get tax benefit, reduced rentals, but they are yet working. Some of them are funded by us as government through Operation Vula. Now, I would request that we become scientific in our arguments. Having said this, I will want to answer some of the issues that Honorable Hlabisa raised. We are opening Dr. Pilsika Isaka Seme Hospital in phases, as I said yesterday. So the hospital is already functional. And we are working on incremental resourcing the hospital because of funds. Now, you must be clear of that. Maybe yours is just to have umcimbi la esohlaba khona inkomo kube njalo sinakwenza lokho, but we want full services, and that's what we are doing. Thanks for agreeing that the ANC-led government have introduced a successful initiative, the KZN Youth Fund. You just don't want to say this is a success brought by the ANC. You don't want to appreciate that you were in government in KwaZulu, you didn't do nothing. You don't want to appreciate that you were in government of KwaZulu-Natal. You were in government in KwaZulu-Natal until 2004. You never did anything. Mani nike ake ngimkhumbuze nje abanye beni ngoba babengekho la mphephethwa uzolekelela. Hey, before 94. Khona phela into honorable members yakuyaba inkinga la. I-education yawa umisi wokugcina wangale baze bahamba bayomcelela bathi hey ake nimzame manje noma ngaba iambassador nje. Angifuni kodwa ungena amagama abantu ayabiza. Angifisi ukungena lapho uyakhumbula wahamba wayoba ambassador yanhluli education nayocela kwa ANC ukuthi sithathele nangu MEC ayoba ambassador nihluleka ngqo. Now you come and talk about umtubatuba and say there is a wrong interference. You then make some illusional statement that you are going to proceed to Umkanyagu. You have failed in umtubatuba. You failed. The court have made a judgment. You want us to go against the court judgment? Why? No. Now, let me then respond to these few issues that the Mzala book. I didn't want to speak on this issue. Maybe before I speak on it, let me start on saying I appreciate your decorum as a leader of the opposition, and I respect you, the manner you raise issues. I want to firstly quote what former President Nelson Mandela said to His Majesty Prince Buthelezi, umntwana wakaphinda nge. In 1998, Madiba said to Prince Buthelezi, I quote, obviously, my hope is to see in due course the restoration of cordial relations which existed between you and OR Tambo and between the two organizations in the 70s. The most challenging task facing the leadership today is that of national unity. At no other point in time in our history has this become so crucial for our people to speak with one voice and to pool their effort, any act or statement from whatever source which tend to create or worsen division is, if in existence, will undermine all effort. Any act from whatever force which tend to create division, whether existing in political situation, is a fatal error which ought to be avoided at all cost. Close quote. Now, Madiba speaks about the deadly error. We must not commit that mistake. We must not commit a mistake that will deepen divisions, especially because of the history of this province. But I'm compelled to respond to some of issues you have raised. And I will do so with respect to you and the IFP. Firstly, the Mzala Nxumalo's book is not a document. It's not a political document endorsed by a structure of the ANC. It is not a novel, nor a fiction. It is a book out of the academic research. When you do studies, whether at honors, masters, or PhD, once you are done, it is easy to convert your academic work into an academic book that will be produced. So this is not a novel. The ANC cannot own or disown this book. It is an academic product. Mzala was supervised in this work academically. The only thing, if you want to contradict, by the way, he interviewed a number of people, including those who were opposed to his own views. So don't come here and speak to us about that. Don't. What you should be telling us is, what did you do to liberate this country? You should tell us that. I don't want to get into details. Let me proceed to deal with the issue of the monarchy as a whole. Today, the IFP wishes to present itself as the party that cares more than any other party about the Royal House and the Zulu nation. Are you fair to us? Are you doing this consciously, understanding what you are trying to say? We don't want to go back. If we would want to go back, we will go back to September 1994, when the Mandela helicopter was stoned when he was visiting His Majesty the King. If you want us to go back, we will go back to how the palace in Guanongoma was stoned. And inside the house, there was former President Mandela and His Majesty. should we go to that extent? You are deepening division, which we have been warned not to do. If you want us to go back, you would want us to go back to 1996, Mbelebeleni, where Queen Kamate and the princesses were attacked. You want us to go back to that? This desperation you are exposing has become blatant. The latest of this desperation found expression on the eve of the local government elections, when the IFP released a pamphlet with the poster of His Majesty Misuzulu. Then you issue a poster with His Majesty, and within time you find embarrassed and you withdrew it. It's desperation. And when we talk about this draconian IFP leader who is intimidating the royal palace and saying he's going to terminate water services, if it was the ANC leader, we would have called him to order. He would have faced the disciplinary actions. Because you are fearful, because of your internal contradictions, you are pointing to us. The next day, the Zululand Council produced a statement that says, no, what has been said by the mayor is wrong. We have miscalculated. You don't want to own up. You come and argue here. And I'm saying this once again with respect. I'm saying this with respect. Let us be fair and let us be genuine. Let us not masquerade as people who represent the royal house as while we are representing ourselves and our political interest. Let me move on. Honorable Rogers, we know you. Yours is not a contest between the ANC and DA. You are contesting to become the opposition party. You say the ANC has not delivered houses. Go around KwaZulu-Natal and see how many houses we've delivered. At your backyard in Kokstad, we've delivered houses. You say, we say nothing about addressing issues of economic growth. You refer to red tape. I said on quarterly basis, we will be assessing all requests by the private sector through the one-stop shop that exists, and we will process all of them. I said at the beginning of March, we are meeting with more than 100 CEOs of the top companies in KwaZulu-Natal. We're meeting with them in South Coast, beginning of March. Now, you speak about the police failure. Yes, there have been systematic problems. But police are now getting stable as a result. Appreciate the operation they conducted here in Pietermaritzburg last week. Appreciate that. It's one clear effort. You say there is no consequence management, yet you are appreciating that when we deal with corruption, some officials run away. You then say we are not dealing with issue of uku and water. By the way, the ML, for those who wrote that speech for you, the ML stand for megaliters. So I said yesterday, COPTA will develop a clear intervention on technical support in each area. And I said that at a high level because I could not detail all of the water works that we will intervene on one by one. But we know what is happening. Now, you come here and talk about inequality. Let me tell you, I come from Mendwed. I'm a son of a mother who had nothing to raise us, myself and my sister. It took her ukutalime atayise so that we will be in school. That is the plight of these people you have brought here. Myself and those people you have brought here were from the same background. I lived in the informal settlement and I know that life. When did you live in that? You visited them because you wanted to parade them. The conditions that are affecting these people are as a result of your own system. You are among those who benefited from the system of apartheid. In fact, the system of apartheid here in South Africa was based on neoliberal agenda, which only benefited, in particular, the mineral energy complex. Who benefit from this mineral energy complex is the like of Oppenheimers. Go to the IEC list today. Who is funded by the Oppenheimers is DA. So let us be clear with you. You will not agree with us when we talk about the state buying SAPREF. You will not. You will not agree with us because you would want the business to continue controlling everything and you would want to see the inequality sustained. Before you visit those people, you should tell us what is happening in the farms in Kokstad. How many workers in those farms are paid at a level of the living wage? Before you go far, just in your nearby area. Yesterday I spoke about Mfuleni, nearby. You didn't go there because it was not going to make news. You decided to come to what you call the transit camp at Tegwin because you're populist. But something unusual happened today. Unusual, extraordinary debate. We started debate till the end. We are not told of Western Cape. Why? Why we have not been told today of Western Cape? We have not been told of Western Cape probably because of a sexual scandal involving the MEC for safety. We are not told of Western Cape today because of the Premier of Western Cape, who against even the proof that the person misrepresented qualification, but he went on to appoint him. So we're not told today of this very glorious province called Western Cape, because the Premier appointed someone who misrepresented his qualifications. In fact, let us tell you, because of this inequality, you went to display in Durban. It's because if we were to deal with it fairly, even today, the life of African and the white is not the same. A leader in the DA is withdrawn from parliament because he said he is not qualifying, but he is misrepresented. But the leader of the party is only having matric. Had it been an African, Action SA, the minor DA. The minor DA, ne? Your chief whip honestly says, I know, academically, I am going to figure out. There are only two people I've seen acknowledging good bonai. By Tinel and you are born what I mean, I'm getting qualification. The second one is your chief whip. Now, you come here and you masquerade as a social activist. Yet you have not addressed the plight of the people. You live with them in Kokstad, where you started as a councillor. In 1996, when you became a councillor, you never did anything about farm workers who live with you. Honorable Speaker, let me conclude on this issue of the IFP saying, Honorable Hlabisa saying, they have respected the royal house. Beside incident I
Honorable
counted.
Premier, as we pause your time, may you kindly take the seat. Which role are you rising on, Honorable Mwango?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm rising on Rule 57 1D.
Premier, ufisa ukubuza nje ukuthi angabuza naku ngamphi ithuba lokubuza.
I appreciate that. I will take the question after I've finished. Thanks. I'll take the question.
Sit down, Honorable Mngwango. Honorable Premier, you may continue with your debate,
Now,
sir.
They say the king was recognized because of them. Let me be historic. When we started in 1994, it was a government of provincial unity. And both the ANC and the IFP, who were there, and the NP agreed on the status of the king. That existed as a common understanding up until 2005. When the ANC premier took the office, Premier Ndebele, it was under him that the ANC legislated. It was the ANC-led government that passed the Traditional Leaders and Governance Act of Act number 5 of 2005. It was not the IFP. You can't masquerading, putting the king's face in a pamphlet. Legislatively, you have done nothing to recognize the king. Honorable members, I want once again to revert back. Let us not deepen the divisions. Let us close space, close ranks, and rebuild. There is progress. And as we engage here, KwaZulu-Natal people are prospering. They hold the flag of this province and of our country high. I count among those the KZN featured in the Olympics game in Tokyo, in Japan in 2021. 4 young designers from KwaZulu-Natal flew the provincial flag high in Tokyo by designing the South African Olympic team's outfit, which was displayed at Tokyo in the opening ceremony. Those are Mbali Zulu, Nompumelelo Mchatu, Sandile Skakane, Sipho Lushaba, flying the flag of the province high. Yesterday, this house was honored by the presence of Lalela Mswane from KwaZulu, who was crowned Miss South Africa
I will
2021.
allow you, Premier, to wrap up. Your time has expired.
Yes. Miss Mswane is from KwaZulu-Natal and flew the flag of this province high. Honorable Speaker and honorable members, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. The Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, the members of the legislature, thank you. You will take your seat because you can't have an order whilst I'm still speaking. I am addressing the House. You will take your seat, Honorable Member. Honorable Kwala, you will take your seat. I want to thank the members of this House for the 2 days that you have been here and how you have conducted yourselves. Thank you, Bahlonishwa. Our guests that have been here yesterday and today, our various stakeholders that we participate in the programs of the legislature together, and those that are partners of government through the office of the Premier that are with us. But of course, our former members of this House, led by Umamkhize Blose, the longest serving deputy chairperson of committees of this House, and all other members that are present. You remain the alumni of the CPA and this House. We always appreciate time to be with you. I thank all of the guests that are with us, the officials led by the DG, of course, the legislature officials led by the secretary. Apologize for any mishap that might have taken, that might be not necessarily in terms of our conventions as parliament. It will not be used as any precedence as we move forward. Now, honorable members, we will adjourn the House until the 9th of March, 2022 at 1400 hours, wherein the MEC for Finance will table the provincial budget speech.
Order, Madam Speaker.